Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Took Hinata for Himself. This story is made by Girl91, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. There has been a time, at some point in our lives, when we have been sent to see someone of a higher rank than ourselves and we know that that person fully intends to punish us. Whether it be a school principal, boss or even the law, it doesn't change the feeling you have, and that is dread. Naruto Uzumaki had already cracked. He was hunched over, clutching his rolling stomach and waiting for the end. Lady Tsunade's apprentice, Shizune, poked her head around the door and curled a finger towards him. With a deep breath, Naruto rose to his feet and stepped into the large round office. Tsunade sat at her desk writing. She looked up as he entered. Putting down her pen, she smiled, and Naruto found himself feeling very nauseous. Naruto, she sighed, interlocking her fingers, I'm getting tired of this. I'm sorry. Let me finish, she whispered. Naruto could feel her intentions. Malicious glee boiled around her, mingled with frustration and an untamed fury that almost hurt. He couldn't help it, he had to defend himself to her. That black wrath was too much to ignore. He had to explain, to appease her. It was just a joke. It wasn't a joke, she roared, slamming her fists onto the desk and causing several thick piles of paper to slide onto the floor with a heavy thunks. When you tell a 7-year-old trainee that Iruka-sensei is actually a spy and has infiltrated Konoha, he will believe you. I didn't think he would. I thought he had more sense than he did. He espered him in the leg with a kunai knife. Well, I couldn't have foreseen that, Naruto muttered. Personally, I think that shows initiative. A funny grating sound filled the air. Naruto looked up and realized, with horror, that it was her. She was grinding her teeth together. She began slowly, beginning to think I could trust you, that you were less reckless. In fact, I had planned to put you on an S-rank mission, but apparently I should reconsider. Naruto jumped to his feet, curling his hand into a tight fist and shaking it at her. You can't do that, that's ridiculous. I can, she bellowed. Naruto fell back, scowling at her. But I have a mind to give you another chance. There is a B-ranked mission. It's not particularly dangerous, but I'll put you in charge, and if you can keep the teams together for its duration, you'll go on the S-rank mission. She smiled and held up a piece of paper. The family that requested this is important. They also have powerful ninja of their own. She paused briefly. Their family produces exceptional fighters, strategists and politicians, but this, she sighed and wrinkled her nose, appears to be a matter of appearance. They want ninja to guard the head of the family, heir to the family and her sister, plus a few other family members on a trip to see some distant relatives. They are all ninja themselves but want extra protection. Naruto scoffed. If they are all such exceptional ninja, why give them protection? Because, Tsunade said stiffly, the Hyugas are one of the most prominent families in Konoha and I can't afford to upset them. Hyuga. He sputtered. Hinata's family. Yes, Tsunade continued, as I said, you are in charge. You were actually requested. Accompanying you will be Sakura-chan, Kiba Inuzuka and Akamaru, Shino Aburame, Tenten-chan, Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, Chuji Akamaki, and, she smirked at this, Rock Lee. Naruto fell to his knees and pressed his hands to his head. No, he meant, please not them. True, at the sound of Sakura's name his heart had begun doing pirouettes in his chest, but now the prospect of spending a week with his fellow academy graduates seemed as welcome to him as a day spent acting as a human target for shuriken practice at the school. Why isn't Neji going? He is. You're working for him. These are your orders, Uzumaki. Tsunade said, barely concealing a grin. Try not to screw it up. As Naruto approached the head of town, he saw everyone waiting for him and scowled. Apparently they had all known but him. Tsunade had planned this in advance. She had known he would never agree to a bodyguard mission, so she had used it as a way for him to redeem himself. He couldn't have refused. A covered carriage was beside them. It was drawn by 2 burly, blue-black oxen which huffed and lowed with impatience. Hello Naruto-kun, said Sakura as he came closer. I didn't know you were coming. Naruto's stomach flipped as he stared at her lustrous green eyes. He gazed at her for a while until a small embarrassed smile tugged at her lips and she shot a subtle look at the others for help. What's going on? Tsunade-sensei said she was sending the head of the team down with a brief. Yihats, Naruto began then stopped, swallowed the copious amounts of saliva that had accumulated in his mouth and began again. Yeah, she put me in charge. There was silence. The others were looking at each other. Tenten shrugged as Lee looked at her and turned to Shikamaru for some instruction. Their tiny movements grated on Naruto just as their eyes did. He shuffled his feet and looked at the floor. From his right he heard a bark-like laugh. Geez Naruto, as if we believed that. Now when is the real leader getting here? Naruto shot Kiba a filthy look. I'm not lying to you, bastard. Sakura, you believe me, right? Sakura half smiled but in a way that told Naruto she didn't believe him in the slightest. He gritted his teeth and stared at the floor. I believe him. A deep calm voice came from behind. They all turned. Neji stood on the carriage steps. I'm not saying I agree with the decision, but Tsunade chose the teams and told us herself. Naruto's in charge. They all turned to stare at an annoyed Naruto before looking back at Neji and breaking into a cacophony of complaints. Some wanted to know why he was leading. Others wanted to know why they themselves hadn't been picked to head the mission. Quiet. A second voice sounded from inside the carriage. A hand protruded from between the curtains and parted them, allowing the young girl to step out. She was dressed in a deep purple kimono with pale pink orchids embroidered up the sides. Her long silky dark hair was pulled back and knotted in the traditional style. Hanabi Hyuga, Hinata's younger sister. You all work for us, correct? Yes, they said in unison. Then why are you questioning our authority? My sister and I requested Mr. Uzumaki on this mission, and despite numerous other suggestions, she shot Neji a blistering glare out of the corner of her eye. We have prevailed. She smiled at Naruto, who had turned a deep shade of maroon as the others looked at him. With huffs and puffs they dispersed except for Neji and Hanabi. Naruto approached the carriage. My lady, he bowed. Hanabi giggled, delighted at being addressed this way. If I may, why request me? Oh well, Hinata talked so much about you, I wanted to see what you could do. She believes in you a huge amount. The 12-year-old leaned forward and winked. And you're every bit as cute as she said too. Naruto felt suddenly as if his lungs had stopped working. See cute. 1 hour later the shinobi was sat in circle playing word games when Tenten leapt to her feet. Hinata-chan, she cried, waving wildly. The others turned. Walking towards them from the village was a man and a young woman. Hinata Hyuga, heiress, and Hiashi Hyuga, head of the family. At first Naruto didn't recognize Hinata and looked past the two approaching to see her, but soon noted the dark hair of the girl and her opalescent eyes almost indiscernible in her pale, heart-shaped face, and they identified her. Her kimono was sky blue with a gold sash. It made her look like a princess. Hello Naruto-kun, she whispered as she stopped, then blushed deeply and looked at the floor, twisting her hands. Naruto said nothing. All he could think about were Hanabi's words, as cute as she said. Cute, cute, cute. Hinata had said he was cute. Hinata, the girl who barely spoke to him, who looked at him only in passing glances, had said that he was cute. Hinata Hyuga, who hid from him when she saw him coming, thought he was cute. Hiashi stepped toward Naruto and looked him up and down, his own pale eyes lingering for a second on Naruto's hair. So you're the one my daughter was so keen to have on this mission. You had better be as good as she says. Hinata gave a tiny yelp at this. Hiashi paused. Hinata, get in the carriage. You shouldn't be out here. Yes, father. Hinata whispered, and eyes still downcast she ran to the carriage and climbed in with Neji and Hanabi. They traveled all day, inching along at a painfully slow pace as the oxen pulled the covered coach down rough roads. Naruto headed the formation while the others surrounded the cart, each set at points perfect for the unique abilities. Not that Naruto was going to admit this, but he had asked Shikamaru for help during his planning, and it was thanks to him that everything was organized so well. Only when the sky was too dark to continue did Naruto signal to stop. The oxen driver reined the animals to a halt. After he ordered the others to set up the tents in a circle and build a fire in the center, he approached the carriage and cleared his tea. Looking up, he found himself nose to nose with Hinata. She gasped and fell backwards, quickly replaced by Hanabi, who smiled and winked again. We're all set, ma'am. She chuckled again as he addressed her formally, then stepped out of the carriage, taking Naruto's hand as she descended the stairs. There was a rustle and a cough from behind the curtain, then Hinata parted the fabric and tentatively took Naruto's hand. She looked him directly in the eyes for a second and he found himself lost in a pair of bright orange wells as the light from the fire reflected in them. Unfortunately for Hinata, as she was trying very hard not to look at Naruto's blue eyes, trod on the hem of her kimono. As she tried to take another step, her dress tripped her and she tumbled down. Luckily for the young heiress, Naruto still had hold of her hand and in one movement pulled her towards him. His left arm encircled her waist and he caught her weight on his shoulder. As she wheezed, staring past him at the ring of onlookers, she couldn't help but feel his body pressed to her, especially the way his arm held her waist so firmly. As Hinata gasped, Naruto's heartbeat quickened, his arm tightened around her middle and he swallowed. His face was pressed to her hair, it was soft on his lips and smelt of jasmine. Subconsciously he shifted his body so that she was leaning fully on his chest. Stepping back from the carriage, on which Hinata was still stood, Naruto gently pulled her down. As she stepped down from the bottom step, she moved her hand to the back of his neck and let it rest there. He moved his head back and looked into her heart-shaped face again, studying every arch and hollow until a movement in the corner of his eye made him look away. Hiashi was staring at him, stone-faced, and Naruto quickly moved back from Hinata, and though still holding her waist and her hand, let her relax away from him. He loathed to part from her. He wanted to remain in her arms, to press her closely to him. The feeling made his insides leap. Hinata, go over there, Hiashi said in a dangerous voice. Hinata nodded and moved away, but only let go of Naruto's hand at the very last moment. As soon as she was gone, Naruto touched the palm that she had held and felt the lingering touch. He watched her retreating back until he became painfully aware of a presence very close to him. Feeling breath hard against his cheek, he looked back and found Hiashi almost toe-to-toe with him and staring him in the face. If I ever, he hissed, see you touch my daughter in that way again, I will kill you. With all due respect, sir, said Naruto, I was helping her. You were doing nothing of the sort. He spat, then strode past Naruto and towards the fire where the others were assembling. Most were sitting down while Sakura cooked a small stew. We're on our way to the land of water, aren't we? Ino asked. Yes, said Neji, we have relatives there and some business. What? Lee began, but Tenten elbowed him in the stomach. Neji chuckled, sorry Lee, I can't say. After that nobody spoke. The Hyugas ate Sakura's plain but pleasant stew and Hanabi began to hum a little tune. The gentle melody floated to where Naruto stood guarding the perimeter and he found himself singing along. He smiled as his eyelids drooped. It's a funny thing, the memory, the smallest thing, if ingrained in your mind at a young age, will have power over you for the rest of your life. Right now that lullaby was sending him to sleep. Turning and walking back to the circle of firelight, he yawned at Kiba. Kiba, switch with me. Kiba jumped to his feet and walked to the edge of the circle. Akamaru walked beside him and sat calmly by his side, his wet nose sniffing the air. Naruto sat down and listened more closely to the song Hanabi was still singing. Once he had recalled most of it, he joined in. His own deep voice purring underneath Hanabi's softer one. The other genin looked at him. Sakura smiled while some of the others threw him sardonic looks and turned away. But Naruto kept going until the end. Hanabi clapped at his effort and leaned against Neji's side. Her cousin seemed to react subconsciously. He let his arm slide around her shoulder and pulled her into the warmth of his side. The others watched with not undue interest. Neji wasn't a particularly warm person, and to see him show gentleness was uncommon. Some of the girls smiled softly at the sight, Tenten especially. Until Lee, who was gazing wistfully at the pair, ruined the moment. Tears in his eyes, he cried. Such a wonderful moment of family affection. I, Rock Lee, am truly moved. Hanabi leapt away from Neji, who had simultaneously withdrawn his arm from her shoulders. Shikamaru sniggered but wiped his face clean at the filthy look Neji threw him. The crack of the fire and the bitter smell of wood smoke filled their camp. A comfortable silence settled over them as easily and quickly as the night had. Hiashi finished his tea and looked across the campfire at his children. You too, he said, pointing at his daughters, bedtime. Hinata leapt to her feet but Hanabi scowled, crossing her arms and her legs. No. Hiashi looked over the rim of his tea glass. Hanabi quailed and rose to her feet, following her sister into the tent. There was silence in the circle, Naruto gazed into the fire thinking of Hinata and the soft arches of her tiny waist, the way that it curved into her hips and those down her thighs. Ramen for your thoughts, said Sakura. Naruto jumped and looked up into her face. Her eyes twinkled as she held out some of the remaining stew. Naruto's stomach gurgled. She giggled. The sound was like a wind chime. Naruto turned pink. Ooh, was it scandalous? She asked with a wink. No, he snapped. She raised her eyebrows. Naruto knew he had answered badly and cursed himself. You were smiling, that's all. Naruto looked up, but she had gone back to her soup bowl, his ramen sitting on the dusty floor between them. Later Naruto sat alone by the fire. Everyone else was fast asleep. He was humming a little tune while he gazed into the flames, very inattentive considering he was meant to be guarding the camps. Somewhere off to the right he could hear water flowing and the steady hush of reeds in the wind. As he listened lazily to the sound of water washing against the banks, he thought he heard something else as well. Knowing that it was his job as a shinobi to check, he got stiffly to his feet and headed towards the river bank. The moon spilled across the water, staining its dark blue mantle. It lapped gently against the shore, waiting for the energy to bite, but that ferocity never came, so it just swept by, seen once and then forgotten. Naruto thought about Hinata, then, guiltily about the way he had snapped at Sakura. Subsequently his mind wandered onto Sasuke, and all at once the dark wall he had built up around that part of him mind came crashing down. Grief swallowed him and he found himself give a tiny gasp of despair. His tea was constricting. He needed to be calm. To be cool. Quickly he pulled off his jacket and his tea, then he pulled off his shoes, his pants and his boxes. He threw them all in a pile far away enough so they wouldn't get wet and ran into the water. He was instantly up to his waist and pushed himself a little further so he was treading water. It was cool but not unpleasant. Lying back he let his ears sink beneath the surface, enjoying the sudden quiet, but as soon as his hair touched the water he yelped as a shiver ran up his spine. Then there came a sound that made his blood truly run cold, a tiny gasp. He was suddenly alert, looking around. How could he have been so stupid? He had left his defense at the bank. All his weapons were with his clothes and he couldn't reach them. Who's there? He called. I know you're hiding somewhere. There was another tiny gasp and a rustle formed the reeds. I said come out. He commanded. Please I'm sorry. Naruto faltered. Hinata. Naruto-kun. A dark head appeared from the tall stalks, hair shining in the moonlight. Naruto swiveled round. Her bare shoulders shone with a blue tint in the night, and Naruto saw a little pier nearby with a small pile of neatly folded clothes sat on a barrel and realized to his mortification that they were both in 5 feet of water. They were wrapped in the same blanket. I'm sorry, I didn't think anyone would be here. Oh no, I shouldn't be here anyway. She said quickly, I'll leave. No wait. He spun around and lunged to grab her hand. She jumped. He drew away. I'll go. He began to swim back when he heard a tiny exclamation. Turning ever so slightly, he paused. There's enough room for us both to be here. Naruto couldn't see a thing but her outline and moon reflecting off her translucent skin, but he could almost feel the heat rising from her at that moment. Well, if your father finds us he'll draw and quarter me. I don't care. Gee, thanks. That isn't what I meant. I'm sorry, it just came out wrong. Single quote. Naruto turned to look at her. She had sunk so low in the water her dark hair was fanning across it. She looked ethereal, like a nymph. No, she was too beautiful to be a nymph. She was something all her own. He swam a little closer. They were barely 2 feet apart. She rose up a little. The moonlight glanced off the arc of her snowy BS. Naruto felt his stomach flip slightly. He swam a little closer to her. She let out a little involuntary gasp as she felt his hands go to her waist and pull her towards him. Her nose brushed his ever so lightly. She saw his blonde eyelashes flutter gently closed and rest on his cheeks. She let herself do the same. His lips only brushed hers at first as if to test her. Then his corded arms circled her waist and pressed her to him, and her crushed his mouth to hers, consuming her in a deep, rough kiss. She could feel his arms as they tightened and crushed the air from her. His tongue touched lightly to her lips and she parted them a little way. He pushed forwards, massaging his tongue to hers, tingling. She could taste ramen, warm and spicy. His thigh pushed gently between her legs, warm in the cool water rushing past, and she willingly complied. His hand slid down her waist and cupped her backside, lifting her ever so slightly in the water, breaking the kiss to do so. Knowing what he was about to do, she wrapped her legs around his waist and tilted her hips so that she could feel him brush her there, ready. She wrapped her hands around his neck and shoulders for support and looked down into his face. He turned her ever so slightly so the moon fell on her features. It bore an expression he had never seen on it before. For a moment he wanted to stay in this second of anticipation, but she tightened her milky thighs around his hips, desperate for him to take what he wanted, and gave a tiny cry. He felt his self-control waver dangerously. He took a deep breath and prepared to push up. Hinata-chan. Hina, where are you? It was Tenten's voice. Naruto and Hinata leapt apart. With a panicked look she swam quickly back towards the pier where she had left her clothes. After taking a moment to calm himself, Naruto headed for his own clothing, but saw to his horror that they had all slid down the bank and were now floating in the water. Climbing out, sopping clothes pressed to his cool chest, he put on his trousers and headed back to camp. Tenten was speaking to Hanabi, who was hugging a half-dressed Neji. His long silky hair hung loose to his waist. As Naruto appeared in the ring of firelight, Hanabi saw him and called out to him. Naruto-kun, Hina has gone. Where the hell were you? Neji roared, crossing the circle of logs and standing right in front of Naruto. Swimming. He began to search for a long stick that he could dry his clothes on. He saw Hinata out of the corner of his eye, hair still knotted and wet, climb into the carriage and had to work hard to keep from smiling. Are you sure, Hanabi-sama? Hanabi could not be excited at his respectful tone this time. The fear and worry graced her girlish features again quickly. I bet she just went to the bathroom and is already back. Hanabi's expression changed then, from anxious to a questioning hope. Naruto wondered, as he watched her trot to the tent, if she would guess what had happened. She seemed altogether too perceptive for his liking. She might even wheedle the details out of Hinata, who, he knew, was a really terrible liar. But as she opened the flap and saw what Naruto hoped was Hinata sleeping, or pretending to sleep at least, she smiled gently and climbed inside with her. She didn't even glance back at them. Hinata spent that night trying her best to ignore the tight ache between her thighs, her knees clamped together. Trying to forget what she had almost done. Tenten walked away from the firelight. When she reached the covert safety provided by the darkness, she sat down and waited. He didn't take long though. He approached from the woods opposite. He had taken the long way round so that Naruto wouldn't see him go the same way as she had. Neji, she whispered. Yes, just checking. There was a low chuckle. It sent tingles up her spine. He extended his hand and she took it. He pulled her up and pressed her fingers to his lips, then wrapped her in his arms. Did you talk to Hiyashi today? She whispered as he began to nibble her ear. She felt him tense. His previously soft hold became stiff and uncomfortable. She shifted, half trying to reposition herself and conceal her disappointment at the same time. Tomorrow, he promised and kissed her mouth gently. He smelled strong and fresh, like the jasmine Naruto could smell on Hinata, but with something Tangier and Hiza mixed in. For a second she forgot her worries and relaxed in his arms. Then she drew away, irritated. No, no, no. She pushed him away and tried not to pay attention to the smoothness of his chest or the rippling sheets of hair that brushed over her hands as she extricated herself from his firm hold. You cannot just kiss me and make it all disappear. Huh. Well, was I at least close? She bit her tongue as she tried not to smile. Very good. He moved towards her again, but she flicked him in the forehead. He fell back with a tiny grunt of frustration. You tell him tomorrow, or so help my Hyuga I will never. She struggled to think of a punishment bad enough, but he had already thrown up his hands. They were large and white, his fingers were tapers, and she eyed them fondly, remembering how they felt when they danced across her tummy. I will talk to him tomorrow. Although I don't think it's his business. He would. Neji laughed again. It was strange really. Tenten didn't consider herself funny. It wasn't the first time she'd thought he might be laughing at her rather than with her. She hung back still until he grew impatient and tackled her to the soft dirt floor. She was winded but giggling, then he began to kiss her tea, tracing little patterns with his tongue until she forgot everything. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.